Hey guys, welcome to Pistons Talk Podcast post-game show. Before we kind of get into this game, if you guys can come on in, you're watching live on YouTube right now, hit that like button. It does help push our Pistons content to fans just like you. We do really appreciate it. Also, if you are a audio listener or you guys like to listen to this podcast on the audio side, we are available on all podcast platforms. Make sure to give us a 5-star review. It is greatly appreciated. But let's get into this post-game show. The Detroit Pistons play the Golden State Warriors, second night of a back-to-back. And I think a lot of us were very excited coming into this game. Pistons won 5 straight games. They had a chance tonight to make it 6 straight. That would have broke a record since the 2015 season. Obviously, that was not the case tonight. Getting into the first quarter, there was no Tim Hardaway Jr. He was a very late scratch. He had back tightness, so the Pistons were without Tim Hardaway Jr. So that slotted in Malik Beasley into the starting lineup at shooting guard. And Asar Thompson started. He was back after missing a couple of games with illness at small forward. So you had Cade, Beasley, Asar, Tobias, Duran with your starting 5 against the Golden State Warriors. Now, something that I noticed very early in this game was the energy level with the Detroit Pistons, especially in the first half of this game. Not to say that they weren't trying or they weren't, playing hard. It just watching the Warriors defend, watching them crash the glass tonight, which we'll probably get into, just the offensive rebounds for the Warriors. They just seemed like more of the aggressive team early on. They really were getting in Cade Cunningham's grill tonight. They were blitzing him, double teaming him, just really making it difficult for him to get comfortable in the first quarter. Warriors had over 20 points in the paint as well. I thought that was something in the first quarter alone. They had 20 points in the paint, and they only scored 25 points in the first quarter. But that was something that I did write down in the game notes. Like, you need more of a paint presence. I thought Jalen Duran did a pretty good job for the most part. He had a really big block on Draymond Green. I don't know what Draymond Green was thinking, trying to dunk on Jalen Duran, but it's another topic for another day. But to end the first quarter, Golden State had a 2-point lead, 25-23, going into the second quarter. The Warriors just really forced the Pistons to play in the half court tonight. That's something that I noticed recently over the past week and a half. The Pistons have been playing a lot of tempo, running those passing lanes, playing in transition. I felt like the Warriors really forced the Pistons in the first half to play their brand of basketball. They forced the Pistons to, play the way they wanted them to play. And they were just, punching the Pistons in the mouth, kind of using that metaphor in this first half. And just the offensive rebounds. I feel like if you look at the box score and you see it was only a 3-point loss for your Pistons tonight, the offensive rebounding, you cannot allow the Warriors to have over 10 plus offensive rebounds and expect to win this game. I believe they either had 15 or 17. I don't have the box score pulled up in front of me. I know it was a pretty large number, but the Pistons have to do a better job of just securing rebounds, boxing out. And it's been a thing this season with this team where we've mentioned it a couple of times with the defensive rebounding, where there are nights where they just don't box out. And it's like you see just Pistons looking up at the rim when the ball's about to, come off the rim and saying, like, who's going to get the rebound some nights. And that was one of the, that was definitely something that happened tonight. But, Warriors were up as much as 18 points in this second half, and the Pistons did go on a little run to end the second quarter. They went on a 12-4 run to dwindle the Warriors' lead down to 10. So the Warriors had a 57-47 lead going into halftime. Coming out of halftime, I thought the energy for the first couple of minutes was just not there. That's to be expected, playing a back-to-back and, playing as many games as they have over the past week. But Ron Holland, I really felt like brought the energy, was hitting his three-point shots, hit three three-pointers tonight. And it got infectious. Like Ron hit a three, Malik hit a three, Sasser hit a three, Cade hit a three, and the Pistons going on an 11-0 run. And they had this game within 6. But the Warriors, they kept it to a point where they wouldn't really let the Pistons get too close. Obviously they were just really, really active with, moving the ball in the third quarter, setting screens, and their offensive rebounding throughout the game was really good. But see, end the third quarter, Golden State had a 82-74 lead. In this fourth quarter, I felt like to myself, I was like, okay, do they have another burst of energy to get back into this game? Can they try to squeeze out another one? And I felt like, yes, they could. But then the Ron Holland and Draymond Green stuff happened, which Ron shoved Draymond a little bit, which obviously Draymond is very what's the best word I can use? He's an antagonist, and he got in Ron's grill, and Ron wasn't really having any of it. Stu got a tech because he barely put a hand on Dennis Schroeder. Dennis Schroeder actually initiated the contact first, which I don't know. We'll probably get into the officiating after I'm done talking about this these game notes. But Warriors go on a 10-0 run after that incident. And it kind of felt like, okay, like maybe, the Pistons don't have enough to get back into this game. And then Cade just turned it on, hit 18 points in the fourth quarter. It just was not enough to get the Pistons back into this game. And like, they only lost by 3, but I felt like when Cade was at the free throw line, he makes his first free throw. The second free throw, he intentionally hit the rim. The ball goes up the backboard. There's about 4 seconds left. Pistons are scrambling to try to tie the game. And the officials, for whatever reason, I don't know if they didn't hear it. I don't know if they didn't see it. But they wanted to review it to see if it even hit the rim, which it did, which I felt like kind of just disturbed the whole flow of that fourth quarter down the stretch with, 5 seconds left into this game. So they go to review it, and in fact, it did hit the rim. It was just so fast that maybe they didn't see it. I don't know. I'm not going to give them the benefit of the doubt because I thought the some of the calls are very questionable down the stretch. But Pistons do lose this game to Golden State, snapping their 5-game winning streak, 107-104. But I wasn't really a fan of the officiating down the stretch with this game. I don't know how you didn't hear it. It was loud as hell. I mean, I could hear it on my TV. Like I'm sure, the players or even the broadcasters that we could hear it. The ball hit the rim, but I don't know, man. That was a really weird game. I get it was on the back-to-back. Would have been really huge for the Pistons to go on a 6-game win streak and get a couple games over 500. But I think with this win streak, what it taught us is this is a very resilient group, and we've known that for quite a while. I don't want people to come up here, or if you guys are on social media or people listening later, and kind of lose faith in this group. This is a group that has shown that they're not going to give in. They're going to compete their tails off for the entire game. And there's a lot of bright spots we can talk about during this 5-game win streak. I'm not going to come up here and say the season's over. We're going to take it one game at a time. I thought the energy in the first half was just not there. They just didn't have it. But I thought coming out of halftime, the energy picked up with Ron Holland. And, they tried to get back into this game. I mean, being down as much as 18 points in this game and, fighting back, clawing back to try to, force the game into overtime, that's just a respect thing with me. I thought they played their tails off. Overall, really did enjoy watching this basketball game, but I am going to be taking a quick commercial break, you guys. And then after we do come back, we'll answer any comments, questions, overall thoughts, and wrap up this podcast. So we'll be right back, you guys. Okay, guys, we are back after that quick break. This is the part of the podcast where we open up the show. Any comments, questions, overall thoughts with this game? The floor is yours. I'm just gonna take a quick sip of water, and then we'll get to these questions real quick. Because I never know how long this part of the podcast can go. You know, I've been up here sometimes for 30 plus minutes just answering your questions with these post game podcasts. But when I go to Johnny, and I think that he brings up a really great point. And he says, I love the fact that we kept Curry to 2 3-point makes and 3 turnovers tonight. I agree with you. If you would have told me that Steph Curry only made 2 3-pointers, I would have thought the Pistons would have won this basketball game. I thought they did a very good job of containing Curry, but also I think it was an off night for him. I think there were some shots that just rimmed out and weren't going in for him. But, overall, I thought Malik Beasley, did a pretty decent job of trying to contain Stephen Curry. I mean, I'm sure you guys like me, like outside of being a Pistons fan, you probably watched a lot of basketball, and Steph Curry's that dude. Steph Curry's a bad man. Um, I thought coming into this game, like he could easily have a 30-40 piece just with his, 3-point shooting alone. But, they did a pretty good job of containing him. And great to point out that, Johnny. I do agree with you. I thought they did a pretty good job. Have a comment from Quinn. I think the starting lineup should have been Cade, Asar, Tech, Harris, and Paul Reed. Durden seems to be a little tired from all this winning. Now would be a perfect time to let Paul Reed get some run. Bobby too. I know we mentioned rotations on this podcast, especially with back-to-backs. I'm not going to nitpick rotations and starting lineups, because if I do that, then it just gets like it can get really toxic and weird. But I would have liked to see a little bit of Paul Reed tonight. Bobby, I don't really know how much they'll use him this year. They used him in garbage time last night. I've caught a couple of his Motor City Cruise games, and I think he's going to get a majority of his playing time this season down there just to develop and get more reps. I just don't really think that, Bobby's really going to be, cracking a rotation right now, especially with the power forward depth that you have. You have Tobias, and you have Tech, and then it's Bobby. So he's like a third string power forward. I think Bobby will play, just not a lot this season. But, overall, Tim getting hurt was a late scratch, was kind of a surprise to me. I thought he was going to be playing tonight. But I really don't want to get into like nitpicking just rotations with JB, because I feel like he's done a pretty good job for the most part this season. I have a comment from Wake Up 1776. This league is about to lose a fan. Not going to waste my time watching Rick Sports. Here's the thing. I am pretty consistent with officiating on this podcast. There was one ref in particular where I felt like low key he was a Warriors fan. And if you guys go back and watch the game, you know which referee I'm talking about. He would not listen to anything Cade or the Pistons were saying, but if Draymond said something or Steph said something, he's basically like neck and neck with them. Again, I don't think there's like a Tim Donaghy in the NBA. I really don't, but like the way that the game was officiated, especially in the second half, kind of makes you feel like, okay, like call the game down the middle. Like, what are we doing here? I felt like the Warriors got a better whistle, but if you look at the box score, I mean, the fouls drawn and called were basically the same. It's just when you're watching the game down the stretch, sometimes officials can just ruin the flow of the game, and it's hard for both teams to play defense, get to the free throw line overall. But yeah, it definitely felt like one of the officials was a fan of the Warriors. I'll just say that. I have a comment from Cruza. It was a good effort by the Pistons to fight back in this game during the fourth quarter, but came up short. We're lucky that Steph was off for much of this game. Yeah, I felt like if Steph was on, probably it would be more than the 3-point loss. He had a lot of takes where I thought they were going in and they didn't. But overall, you love the fight. You love the effort from this team. Like if this was last year's team, no shot that they, come back and, being down as much as 18 points, no shot this team last season does that. This team this season will fight and claw and try to get back into each and every game. And I think as fans, we appreciate that because this roster isn't perfect. It's actually a flawed roster, but they make up for it with just being gritty, not giving up, and, just trying to make up in areas where they're not as talented as every team in the NBA, but they make up for it with just determination. And you love that as a fan. Had a comment from DT Lions. It was a close one, boys, but I'm glad how we performed considering we had the game the night before and the Warriors hadn't played since the 7th. Yeah, the Warriors had a couple of days off. They were well rested. They were in Detroit last night. They flew in last night. So it's just kind of like a scheduled loss. You look at the Pistons. They're going to have a couple days off now. They don't play until Saturday against the Raptors. So that's another young, struggling team. Maybe the Pistons could, take advantage of a Raptors team that has been very inconsistent this year and try to get back on the winning column and end the week on a high note. I mean, if you could end this week 3-1, I think most of us right now watching this or listening to this later, if you said, "Hey, Pistons are going 3-1 this week," you'd be like, "Okay, I can take that. I can accept that. Like that's good. I'll take 3 wins and 4 games this week." But I do agree with you, DT Lion. Like Warriors were rested, but it's a schedule loss. And a comment from Chuck Brewer. Asar didn't play in the second half at all, did he? If he did, very little, only in the third. I don't know. I felt like he was on the bench the entire second half. I have to go back and actually watch back the game, but maybe he was still sick. He was out 2 straight games with an illness. So maybe that's why Asar didn't get to play a bunch of minutes tonight. Maybe he's, working his way back from whatever, illness he did have. But I felt like in the minutes that he did have out there, he played pretty well. Him and Ron played pretty well. Comment from Jay Hart. FYI, Stu is receiving text quicker than Sheed would. What the fuck is up with that? Draymond don't even get text as quick as Stu does. This universal around the NBA rest for Stu. Yeah, I mean, I don't even think it really warranted a tech. I mean, it was just a little shove to Dennis Schroeder. He gets teed up. Um, I think it's to the point where, like, with Stu and technicals, a lot of these referees now, if he talks back to them, if he makes marginal contact, he's getting a technical foul. He's getting punished for, I guess, his behavior, and I don't really think it's warranted. Um, like that was an attack. A game last week where he barely touched a player, that was a technical foul. I don't understand it. It's something that these officials, I feel, sometimes get in their feelings a little bit too much, and they kind of just disturb the flow of the game. But yeah, I do agree with you, Jay Hart. Like that was a really soft technical foul, and I would fight it if I was to. Like I didn't feel like that was warranted of a tech, even though he did, put his hands on Dennis Schroeder. Obviously, the camera angle on FanDuel didn't catch that. Someone at the game had sent it to me. He like barely touched Dennis Schroeder, and Dennis Schroeder actually initiated the contact first, but he didn't get attacked. So it's like, really, what are we doing? Got a comment from Organic Lindo. Nice to see us fight, but the lack of defensive rebounding was brutal. Yeah, it was. When you're playing a team like the Warriors that have shooters like Buddy Hield and Steph Curry, giving those guys more possessions to chuck up and possibly make threes, that's an uphill battle by itself. Like, they have to do a better job of securing defensive rebounds and also boxing out at the end of the day. And I felt like they just really didn't do that tonight. I don't know if it was tired legs. Maybe they got back late to Detroit after playing in Brooklyn last night. But overall, this rebounding has been good this season, but there have been nights where they just don't secure defensive rebounds, and you can't win games when you're giving up that many offensive rebounds to the opposing team. Pistons, Jacob has a comment. Asar and Ron combined 4 out of 9 from 3. Not bad. Yeah, I mean, if you would have told me that they shot 4 out of 9 from 3, I'd actually be pretty impressed with that. I would say, okay, like there's progression there with both of them as shooters. I feel like Ron is, I said this last week with Eric when we had him on the podcast. Like, I feel like Ron is very close to being a two-way player, because like he can drive to the basket. He's had a couple of possessions where he's hit some good mid-range shots. If that three-point shot becomes more consistent, like he's going to just be a player where JB may have to have a conversation of possibly starting him because he's playing so well. I feel like he gets to the basket at will. He can finish with either hand. Just the energy he brings on a night-to-night basis. I've been really, really impressed with him overall. Want to get to a couple more, comments and questions with you guys. This one comes from Drew. I like that we have a chance to win every game this year, even if we're down 20. It is nice to have a chance to win every game, but you don't want to get in the habit of trying to fight back, being down 10, being down 15, 18, 20 points every night, because that wears on you throughout the season. I felt like the Brooklyn game last night was a perfect example of that. Like, they have a 10-point lead. Brooklyn comes back. It's only a 2-point lead going into the second quarter. And then they put them away, and they're up 20 in the third and up 25 in the fourth. Like, you want to have an opportunity to put these games away quickly if you can. You do not want to come into each and every game being down 15, 18 points at halftime and like really just play like flawless basketball for the second half. But it is nice to see that these guys are competing and having an opportunity to fight and try to win each and every game. Comment from Pistons Jacob. Asar was out for a majority of the second half, but he didn't look checked out totally. He appeared ready to go back in. Never put his warm up back on. Yeah, I don't know if it was just a coaching thing with JB tonight. Maybe he just want to take it easy on him because he did miss 2 straight games with a sickness and illness. It could be that. It could be just Ron Holland was just playing so well that you just want to ride the hot hand. Like, I felt like in the third quarter with Ron, it was the main reason why the Pistons got back into this game. His just defensive intensity, scoring the basketball, I felt like was really infectious with the guys out there. And he was a big reason why I felt like they were able to come back and have a shot to get this game into overtime tonight. But really impressed with Ron Holland. We do have a comment from Derek talking about Ron Holland. He reminds me of a young Spreewell. Man, I have not heard a Spreewell comp in a minute. I could see where you're coming from, Derek. I like it. I like it. Spreewell was a dog back in the day, like when he played for the Timberwolves. Man, I really like that comp, Derek. Man, shout out to you, man. Like, I didn't even think of like a Spreewell with a Ron Holland. When we run that pace, fits very well with our guys. I want to see them speed the tempo up a little. I know Cade is slow and methodical, but man, when we run, good things happen. It's a comment from Mr. My City. I agree with you, Mr. My City. We've talked about this several times. When you're a young team full of 20-year-olds, there's no excuse why you can't run. And I know Cade can run too. I know Cade has the ability to push the pace, push the tempo with this team. When you have athletes like a Ron, like an Asar, like a JD, Marcus Sasser, like these guys can definitely push the pace and push the tempo. I believe they're like top 10 in the league right now in fast break points of just pushing the pace. But I do agree with you. I think that's one way the Pistons can generate more looks. And more offense is playing faster. I felt like the Warriors just did a really good job tonight of like cutting that off and making the Pistons play in the half court. And I think that's why we really struggled in the first half, is we didn't have the same opportunities to run as we did in the third quarter, in the fourth quarter as we did in the first 2 quarters. But, overall, I think that's something that JB and the Pistons have been doing more of. They've also been blitzing Jalen Duren on the perimeter more, which is kind of helped the Pistons have more running opportunities when the blitzing does work and they, deflect passes, or, maybe Cade gets a steal, Malik gets a steal, Duren gets a steal. I think that's a big reason why we've seen this team run a little bit more as of late over the last 2 weeks or so. But definitely something that I've noticed as well. This is a comment from Organic Lindo. Tech can even Simone Fontecchio can't even dribble or defend. I would have put B-Ball Paul in those defensive stands at the end. Here's the thing. I like Tech as a player, but asking him to put the ball on the floor, Organic, I think is asking a lot. Not to say that he's not capable of putting the ball on the floor. There have been possessions this year where, he scores, but more times than not, when Tech does put the ball on the floor, it's almost a turnover immediately. I think when you ask your role players to kind of expand their game and try to get out of their comfort zone, stuff like that with Simone does happen. But yeah, I don't like Tech putting the ball on the floor. Like when he does that, most likely it's going to be a turnover. But that's just me. Beasley off the bench equals slow starts. Apparently, he should lead the bench barrage, in my opinion, from Mr. My City. Yeah, I mean, for the most part, when we look at like the first quarters with this team, The slow starts are usually with the starting unit, because the bench unit comes in and they bring energy, like Beasley, Ron, Stu. They bring defensive intensity and energy and get them back into the game or get them the lead. It's probably really hard for JB to take Beasley off that second unit because he provides so much scoring and such a spark. But when you're without Jaden Ivey and Tim Hardaway Jr., you're almost forced to, play him tonight. And he had a good game, another good game. He had 20 points again, but the slow starts are another area of concern, like with this team. I don't really know how you fix it. I don't know if it's, having Beasley in the starting lineup, and when Tim does come back, maybe you have him off the bench. Not really sure how they're going to address that. I personally would have Beasley off the bench just because he's been just such a sixth man and a spark plug for this basketball team. But I'm probably going to just wrap up this podcast, you guys. We got 48 of you watching right now. We've been live for almost 30 minutes, but Pistons do lose this game tonight, 107-104. That does break their 5-game winning streak. They have one more game this week against the Toronto Raptors on Saturday at LCA. Should be a really good game. Should be a very entertaining game. Last Pistons-Raptors game went down to the wire. We'll see you guys Saturday and Sunday. We're going to be joined by Pistons Thoughts this Sunday to kind of just wrap up the games of the week, some trade rumors, and give you guys some content this weekend so you guys can enjoy that. If you are still watching on your way out, definitely hit that like button. Does help us out a lot. But we'll see you guys in a few days. Take care and go Pistons.